What's up, y'all? And thanks for stopping by. Wanda Vision, Season 1, and this is Episode 8 entitled Previously On. And we get taken back to Salem, Massachusetts via 1693. And this is Agatha or Agnes's flashback, and apparently it's like the whole thing of the Salem witch trials. And she's actually up against a tree, and she is, tied with witchly rope around her. Yeah. They're trying to get her to confess she's a witch, and she does. They say that she is accused, being accused of using powers beyond her level, something like that. And they then proceed. There's about, I don't know how many witches around her, but they proceed to zap her, if you will, keeping their what do you call that power that they have, shooting out their hands, and they're looking to burn her from within because you can see orange type of you know thing. Her appearance, her face is starting to kind of glow, starting to look like she's burning from within, and she ends up pretty much turning the powers on them and pretty much drains them all of their youth and their energy, and they're just shriveled up skulls or skeletons by the time she's through with them. Her mom, or she calls her mom, decides to try to once and for all put her out, if you will, and she ends up being shriveled to nothing, and she dies. And Agatha then goes to over and then she gets a medallion or some type of pendant and takes that. I think that's the source of her power, maybe the source of her mom's power. And so we see a little bit of where she comes from a coven of witches. She's a well-known character in the Marvel universe and the comic books, and like I always say, I don't follow the comics. I'm not that deep into the lore, but I do know about Marvel. I do know about watching the movies and all that stuff. That's where I kind of got my, footing in, if you will, my feet in, however you say that. But we then go to present day, and Wanda is trapped as Agnes tells her all. She tells her that she possessed Pietro's body, his eye. He was pretty much her eyes and her thoughts or something like that. But we see Agnes bring Wanda back to her time in Sokovia, and her family would watch sitcoms. And this one, they're most likely be watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, but you see I Love Lucy, Bewitched amongst the selections there. So that's where you kind of get to see why the reason why when she, ends up, when you see her in the first episode, that's the reason why it's like an old sitcom-y type of thing. Now, a little later, we see her as she is now grown, and she's in some sort of a lab, and you see Wanda do something that many have tried and failed, and that is she absorbs an Infinity Stone, and apparently the first to be able to interact with it without dying, as previous volunteers have. We then see Wanda at the Avengers compound in a scene with Vision grieving the loss of Pietro, and very, very touching scene. We see the kind of like the start of their attraction to each other, a mutual affection right there between the two. And how did she do it? Says she all keeps telling her that, how did you do it, and then we see bringing Vision back. I mean, now we see how she met with director Hayward, and she demands to see the body. She's a next of kin, that she says, and she wants to, give him a proper burial. And when she goes there, she sees a dismantled Vision, and she gets very, very emotional. She starts crying. She's telling him to stop as they are working on the various parts of Vision's body. And when she's allowed to go there after she shatters the glass, we saw that in the past episode where we see, they had that footage, surveillance footage of her, jumping in, and all of the scientists, whoever they are, kind of scatter, and then Hayward tells the soldiers there to stand down. And when she goes to touch his forehead, she says over and over again that she can't feel him. I can't feel you. But when she leaves, she gets in her car and she sees a piece of folded paper. Don't know what it is at this point. And then she goes driving. And she drives into Westview. But it's modern day, and she sees familiar faces like Herb and Mrs. Hart. But it's very run down and somewhat deserted, except for the locals scene. We see the people there. Now, she has a property deed, and that's what that piece of paper was. And to grow old in was circled with a heart right in the middle of the deed. She gets very emotional. There's a piece of this foundation. There's no house there, and she just collapses, and then she just hexes the whole town and transforms it into what we see, or what we saw in the first episode, while bringing Vision into form as well. And that's how she did it. You see the both of them, greet one another. Well, he greets her first, and hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay in? And they sit on the couch, and he turns on the TV with a remote, and then we see Wanda in the back viewing it, and all of a sudden it disappears, and then all we see is the studio lights, and Agnes alone in the audience, slow clapping. Now, Wanda ends up outside. She hears her son screaming for her, and sees Agnes, or Agatha, with either son in a kind of with a witcherly, how do you call that, rope around their neck, kind of holding them back. Her powers holding them back, and she pretty much tells her that you're the most powerful, but you're dangerous, and yet you're spending time, making breakfast and watching old sitcoms and things like that, And then she tells Wanda that all this that's happening, all this stuff, is chaos magic, and that makes her the Scarlet Witch. And that was that, and that's how it ended, and a big revelation there. And then we go to a mid-credit scene, and we see director Hayward, and talking about powering up something. We needed to get the power from the source. All along we've been trying to harness a power, and it's right from the source. And we see that director Hayward and his team there have seemed to have powered up the real Vision. And how it ends is that you just see Vision's eyes open, and he looks around, and that's it. Close up on his face. So what does that mean? We're going to see the real Vision now in action now, and he's going to go and meet with Wanda, probably, if he knows, or I don't know how they're going to use him. Are they going to use him as a weapon? Because he is the ultimate powerful sentient weapon, as Hayward always likes to say. The reason why he wanted to pull him apart and retain the body and look at it and study it. And I guess this is the culmination of all that effort. But yeah, this episode is very dark, and it's like going away from the cutesy stuff from before, where now it's getting really towards the end of the series, and more likely it's gonna start moving into the next films, because it's the start in the beginning of the phase 4 for Marvel. So we'll see what happens, but this episode was very, very good, like all the episodes, and they just seem to keep getting better, and the story just keeps going along, and it really makes sense. I mean, I watched some few people who watched the first episode, and they have that condescending what the F look on their face, looking at each other like, what's going on? I don't get this, I don't get that. And I'm just thinking, when I watched this, when I started watching this show, I went with it. I said, this looks very peculiar, but you know what? I think it's going to go somewhere. So I'm just going to keep watching it. And I took it for what it was. I wasn't thinking about how does it connect to the MCU and how does it this and that. I'm just like going, I just go with from episode to episode to episode until I can start finally seeing, oh, it's all coming together. The first few episodes built up to this part right here, and that's what a lot of people don't do. It's like they want to complain, like I always talk about, whether it's DC, whether it's Marvel, whether it's Disney, whatever it is, people want to complain. They don't have the patience to like watch a show or watch a movie and let it unravel, let it unfold, and then you towards the end or towards like if it's a TV show towards like the fourth or fifth episode, you'll be like, oh, okay, that's why this is, and then you got people that's jumping on the bandwagon now because what happened, what was it, when it was episode 4 or 5, when you started seeing connecting to the modern universe and all that stuff, and why it was like this, why we were seeing it as a TV show, and finding out that it was all Wanda's what she wanted to her perfect little world. And people are like, oh now I like it now, I'm gonna jump into it. No, it's like there's somebody that said that on one of the channels I watched, and she said, no, you can't come along and join me anymore. You guys were pretty much mother effing the show and saying that it sucked and that it makes no sense, and now you want to jump on the bandwagon. This person's like, get away from me, you're not going to jump on it with me, I've been with it from the beginning, and you guys are just now jumping back into it because you like it now, like, you know what I mean? You gotta have patience, folks. You gotta watch a thing. It's a whole season. You don't get everything in the first episode. You don't get even the second or third episode. Sometimes it takes the halfway through or maybe 3/4 into it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what happens. Why? This is what connects to what I'm supposed to be. What it's supposed to be. It's like, but I personally enjoyed this episode and the season as well, and hopefully. I think we have. I think there's one more episode, or maybe two more. But I'm looking forward to how it ends and how it connects to. I think this is probably going to go into, Doctor Strange. The next Doctor Strange film, and people are still saying that he might appear. If there's only one more episode, he needs to make his appearance. So either that or Magneto. People are saying Magneto as well. So I don't know. We did see Pietro. That version of Pietro is actually his father. What is it? His father was Magneto, right? Evan. What's his name? The guy that plays Pietro that appeared here. Evan Peters. Evan Peters. Yeah. His character of Pietro of Quicksilver is the son of Magneto. But then again, we find out Pietro wasn't even real, right? His body was controlled by, Agnes or Agatha. But a lot to take in and a lot to absorb, and I got it all. I took it all in, and it was very good, very good. So, well, that's my video. That's my recap and thoughts on Wanda Vision, season 1, episode 8, entitled "Previously On." And well, for those of you who stopped by and checked it out, appreciate it. And in closing, as always, take care.